Hi, loves, and welcome to the With Love Always podcast, a podcast to help you live the life you were created for. We are your hosts and your friends, Bree
and Marissa,
and we're so grateful you're here.
We pray you listen and leave feeling more inspired, encouraged, and uplifted.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of With Love Always. We are so grateful, as always, that you are here and tuning in to today's episode. For today, we are going to be diving into the topic of joy versus happiness and why we are living a life in the pursuit of joy. Joy, for the longest time, has actually always been one of my favorite words. And until recently, I think I've been finally able to put it into words why I'm so passionate about pursuing a life of joy versus happiness, and why this is something that I think is so countercultural to what we are always told we should be pursuing. I think when we think of joy and happiness, I believe most of us believe that these two words are interchangeable. And I know for myself and in my life, for the longest time, I thought they were the same. But I want to encourage you guys in this conversation today to really be able to identify the difference between the two, and also encourage you to be more in pursuit of a life of joy versus a life of happiness. So in today's conversation, we're going to dive into all the reasons why I believe joy is really the abundance that you are seeking. And the reason, once again, why I want to talk about this is because I think we live in a world that provides us a false framework of what it truly means to have a fulfilled life. And so let's dive in to the topic of joy. The way that I define joy in my life is that joy is ultimately a choice, whereas happiness is something that is based on your circumstances. I think of joy in my life as something that is a part of my character. It's a perspective that I'm choosing. It's something that I'm more active in, whereas happiness is such a dependency on the circumstances around me. It's dependent on the ifs. If this happens, when this happens, what if this happens? It's waiting on the perfect circumstances in order to experience an emotion, whereas joy is something that I experience and that I choose to experience no matter the circumstances, no matter what I'm experiencing in a moment, no matter the good or the bad, the highs or the lows. It's something that is ever present and that I can always experience, even if I'm waiting on the ifs, whens, and dreaming about something that I really desire to see in my life. Joy is the belief in the waiting and the hope in the in-between that there is something good to be found. And happiness is just the result of the goodness after it has already come, but the joy is really what prompts you to receive the happiness that is to come. And so that is how I like to define joy in my life. But Marissa, I would love to hear from you how you like to define joy in yours.
Well, honestly, when we were talking about this a little bit prior, it was so helpful because I feel like I didn't even have the language for that, like joy versus happiness. I think it's so easy to just kind of lump them together. But for my definition, or at least when I'm trying to break it down, what kind of came to mind is when I think of joy, it's things that really fill my soul. So it's more than just an emotion and a feeling, like you were saying. I feel like happiness really is this thing we can kind of experience, and it might be kind of a fleeting feeling, whereas joy really is a perspective, and it's something that we have the ability to choose. And I've even just kind of found this where I think there was a shift where I used to focus so much on trying to change my circumstances in pursuit of happiness. And I found that now I can really change my perspective and actually pursue and choose joy. So I'm excited for us to unpack that a little bit further. I think it can be a little like abstract right now, and something that we're even trying to still just put the words to. But I think the simplest like definition for me is really joy comes down to kind of the pursuit of my purpose. Really feel like I'm able to find joy when I just can rest in God's presence and His plan for my life. And so that's kind of how I define joy, but I know that can look different for a lot of people.
Yes, I love that so much. I think going back to like trying to define these two, because I know it's such a new concept, because like I said, I think for most of us, even for myself for the longest time, these two words were so interchangeable in my language. If not, I think I naturally leaned more towards happiness because at least for myself, like when I'm on social media or, talking to people, I think happiness is a word that rolls off of our tongues more than joy. I personally don't know if I actually hear people talk about joy that much. I don't know if you do.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty rare.
Yeah, I feel like it's a word that feels so reserved or it's not used as frequently. And like I said in this conversation, I really want the greatest outcome of this and those who are listening to this episode for you to begin choosing that word joy over happiness. And so, like I was sharing, joy is ultimately a choice, whereas happiness is the result of an outcome. Happiness is when things go your way. Happiness is when you get that dream job, or when you get that paycheck, or when you accomplish that goal, or when this is that, whatever it may be in your life. I think we all have goals in our lives, dreams in our lives, ambitions in our lives, these big, monumental, grandiose things that we think, oh, when I finally reach this age and I get married, like Marissa, oh, then I'll be happy. Or when I finally have my first child, then I'll be happy. For myself, as you guys know, I ran a marathon. For a while I thought, oh, when I run the race and I'm on race day and I complete it, then I'll be happy. That is what happiness is. It's just the waiting for the circumstances to be complete, the waiting for the circumstances to be made perfect, waiting for that ultimate goal or desire in your life. But that's where joy is the in-between moments that craft together the happiness that you end up receiving and living and experiencing. Joy is the moments that nobody is seeing. Joy is the moments when, funny enough, I was actually driving here today to record this episode, and I just so happened to unexpectedly get caught in almost an hour and a half of traffic that normally is not how long it takes me to get here. But even in the in-between of the happiness I know I was going to experience recording this episode today, I had joy in a moment that anyone looking at that could have felt so defeated in, so frustrated in. But I had joy in that car because I knew for whatever reason, I was intended to be in that car for as long as I was. And instead of feeling frustrated or feeling annoyed or feeling defeated, I just listened to my favorite music and I just reflected on my thoughts for the week, and I just chose to experience that moment to the fullest extent that I possibly could. Not because it was a perfect moment, not because it was an ideal circumstance by any means, but because I was choosing to find something good and choosing to believe that that moment of defeat or that moment of frustration was something that could be authored for my good. And so that's why I cannot emphasize enough. Joy is a choice. Joy is a perspective. Joy is something you are experiencing even when things are not going your way. And what a countercultural concept idea that, like I shared, I don't know about you, Marissa, I never hear people talk about. I think we are kind of trained as a culture to really be looking ahead at the things we can do and the ways we can accomplish and the things we can have to show and all that sort of stuff. And we're always waiting for the next best thing. We're always building for the next best thing. We're always expecting that we need to push ourselves to the next best thing. But what if I told you that the greatest fulfillment, abundance, and emotion that you can experience right now in this moment is available to you even despite your circumstance? And that is why joy is a choice. And so some examples that I want to share with you guys of just tangible ways I've experienced both happiness and joy, and why I feel like these examples will help break it down a little bit more, is one of the examples. I mean, I shared me being stuck in traffic, but something else that I'm currently going through right now is I am in the middle of a move. And so I've shared this, but I will share it again. So I recently moved out of my first LA apartment, and I'm kind of in this lull of an in-between of not quite having my next place that is mine yet. I'm currently looking for a place. And so in the meantime, I'm staying with friends or staying at friends' apartments while they're away traveling. And I think, though I cannot wait to find my own place, and I know that that will be such a happy day when I find my own place, the in-between moment is when I really see it's such an opportunity for me to refine my character. this in-between moment, if I'm being so honest, has been very stressful. It's been stressful financially. It's been stressful feeling like I don't have the stability of having to, thankfully, by the grace of my friends, depend on people to let me into their home, let me, couch surf, let me, sleep in their guest bedroom, whatever it may be. I'm so grateful for that. But I think the lack of stability of having my own home has been super stressful. And also, like I said, waiting on the blessing of where am I going to live next? God, what are you going to do? Where are you going to lead me? There's so much in between. And I think if anyone were to really look at this in between moment that I'm experiencing, I think it's really easy to think, oh, Brie, like once you move into your place, your dream place, and you're finally living alone like you've always wanted, that is when you're going to be happy. And though that will be true when that blessing does come, that's where I have to be active in defying waiting on that blessing and find the joy in the right now, the joy in the opportunity to be stressed out, honestly, the joy in the opportunity to be even in financial strain, the joy and the opportunity for friends to invite me in and show me what unconditional love is and show me that I'm not a burden through this time. There's so much joy to experience. And truly where my joy is coming from is from the faith and the hope that God is working something out so good for me that I can't even see. And that is my anchor in this time of so many unknowns and so many in-betweens and so many question marks and so many stressors and anxieties. But that does not mean that even in the midst, though all these experiences and all these emotions are so present, all these question marks are so present, there's still joy to be found. And so that's where I just really want to provide a framework and that tangible story of what I'm experiencing right now to show you the difference between happiness, which is the result, and joy, which is the in-between. And so that is just one of the stories that I have. Another quick little story I'll share with you guys. I'm sure a lot of y'all who are listening may know that I ran a marathon back in March, which I can't believe that that's already passed. Haven't been running in a while, so I'm just so grateful for that accomplishment in my life. But like I was sharing a little bit earlier, when the training got tough, there was so many moments, so many days, so many long runs where I was struggling mentally, did not want to run, did not want to put in the work, honestly wanted to quit that last month before the big race because things got so tough and my body got so tired, my mind got so tired, and there was so much in me that was like, okay, Brie, focus your sights on race day. Focus on how you'll feel after the race is done. Focus on that feeling after the marathon is done because that's where the happiness lies. And though I can confirm that that was true and so much happiness came when I crossed that finish line and I realized I had just ran a marathon, that feeling is unlike anything I could ever experience or put to words. And maybe some of you out there who are listening know that feeling, whether you ran any sort of race to any sort of length or distance. Though there was happiness there, something that God had to remind me of and re-anchor me in is that there is a choice to be made. Am I going to be waiting for race day to experience happiness? Or am I going to find joy in the moments when I am exhausted? Am I going to find joy in the moments when your girl did not want to run? Am I going to find joy when I was training literally in the pouring rain? Am I going to find joy in knowing that it's all these moments in between that are building, refining my character? Am I going to choose to be thankful for the moments that are imperfect through training? Because that is where the ultimate abundance lied for me. That choosing joy in circumstances that I did not innately feel joy in is actually what magnified the happiness that I felt as the outcome. And so I think that's also an additional encouragement I want to provide for you. If you want ultimate happiness with whatever outcome you're reaching for, whether it's a dream, a goal, a desire, anything, if you want to increase the happiness that you will feel, it's by choosing the joy now. Choose the joy now through the frustration. Choose the joy now even when you don't feel it. Choose the joy now when the circumstances are so imperfect, when you are stressed, when you are hurting, when it's hard. Because when you can change and shift your perspective now, that is what provides an even increased happiness later. And so those are just some of my examples. I could provide so many more examples of just the difference between joy and happiness. But Marissa, I would love to hear an example from you of a time in your life where maybe you didn't feel happiness, but you were experiencing a hope, a joy, and a faith beyond your circumstances.
Yeah, right as you said that, I did realize, I was like, wow, joy really is in the private moments that nobody else sees, which I think is so special. And just there's something so intimate about that. But my example is kind of similar to yours in some regard, where it has to do with moving. And I think I might have mentioned this in a previous episode, but my husband and I live in a little home in the valley. And so I had to drive a little bit to get here. And we have just had such a desire for as long as we've been married, or even just as long as I've known my husband. We've always wanted to move to Orange County, which is about like an hour south of Los Angeles. So maybe like 2 hours from where we currently are. And that is like a dream of ours, and we know it's going to happen one day. But for whatever reason, we're kind of stuck in this in-between season. And I say stuck loosely because, again, it really was like a choice. We feel like God did intentionally place us here. And it really has been a season of preparation for us. And I think there's a lot of great things about this in-between. But I think it can be hard when you know what's on the other side, and you're just kind of like you were saying, you're so eager to get there. You're like, I know I'm going to love living by myself. We're like, we know we're going to love living down there, and community is easier. We want to build a family down there. Like, we just really see our lives existing down there. And so, yeah, it's been a little bit challenging as far as like we're seeking that ultimate circumstance and happiness, but we just have felt such a just prompting to stay here, and that this season is so intentional for us. But there have definitely been moments where we've gotten a little bit impatient, and we've even tried to kind of like speed up that timeline, and we'll start house hunting and like applying to places. And it just always like, thank goodness for the grace of God, because he just shuts that door. And it's hard, but it's such a good reminder that we are exactly where we are supposed to be. And we know that in our hearts. But as far as kind of joy, like, it's really forced us to get creative in thinking like, why are we here, and what are the good things that are existing? And I mean, there's been so many things, but I think just a couple examples are, number one, we're getting to invest so intentionally in our relationship and just have that like quality time and just kind of quiet time together and lay this foundation for our marriage and for our lives and the family we hope to build. And also, we're kind of just removed from a lot of noise and distractions. And I think that's so intentional. It's really allowed both of us to focus on passion projects. Obviously, being the podcast is one of them, but I really don't know, had we moved, if we would be doing this. I think it's just provided that additional headspace, but also that feeling of discomfort to the point where it's caused us to be like, okay, we actually need to address all of these feelings in our lives, all of these hopes and dreams. We can't just push them to the side. We need to actually focus and invest on them. Or invest in them. So to kind of summarize it, I would say this really has been a season of kind of refining our character, and it's been so challenging, but so worth it. And we've really been able to find joy. But again, it's not something that just naturally comes. We have to choose that joy and seek out that joy. And we know that happiness is on the other side and lies ahead of us, but we can have joy in this season of preparation. So just trying to really embrace that.
That's so good. I love that you said having joy in the season of preparation, because I think that really is what joy is all about. It's in the preparation. It's not just the result. It's those moments in the in-between, like I said. And joy also isn't exclusive to just like in the anticipation of something. I think that's kind of the framework we've been speaking on. But I just think about, whether it's myself or when you encounter someone who's just so full of joy. Like I said, joy, not happiness, but so full of joy. You encounter a perspective and you encounter a heart that is so full of hope of, even if they're having a tough day, which I've had a lot of tough days recently, But I have this sense of hope and I have this sense of joy that I know that everything is happening for the betterment of my good, even if that good is just to refine my character, even if that good is just for me to struggle a little bit so I can know the heights of what the happiness will feel like. It's all so intentional. And when we are viewing those moments in our lives of such lows with that lens of perspective, it's not sugarcoating things. It's not putting a Band-Aid on things. It's choosing to just believe that God is working everything out for the benefit of our good, not because, he has to, but because he loves us enough to. And so that's where I want to bring us to the next point, which is just so similar to what I've been sharing so far, but joy is active, whereas happiness is passive. Happiness is something anybody on earth can experience. Everybody on earth will experience happiness, whether you are the best, kindest, most loving, gentle person on earth, or whether you are an unkind human. We all experience happiness. And that's where I want to even urge you guys even more to not just reach for happiness, because happiness is in a beautiful way, it's a universal experience, but joy is something that requires you to actively refine your character and refine your mind and transform the way that you think. And joy is the separation between the people in the room of who is actually living a very abundant life with an abundant mindset, because you can tell, like, fill the room with however many people you want, 100 people. And there could be people who are so wildly successful there, who have accomplished the world, who are on their mountaintop according to worldly standards, whether they're business owners or millionaires or whatever metric that the world tells us is equivalent to happiness. You could encounter these people and they could not necessarily be the most joyful people. They could be happy in a fleeting moment, but they're not in the day-to-day filled up. They're not in the day-to-day walking in abundance or walking in a light perspective. But then you could take someone else who is striving for things in their life, whether it's something that big or a different goal or a different ambition or a different dream, and they could be the most light-filled, abundant, just warm person that you ever encounter, because they are so filled with joy, even in the moments when life is imperfect. And so something that I think about often is all the things in my life, if they were taken away from me, whether it is the job that I love or the city that I love or whatever it may be, whatever thing in my life or in your life that you absolutely adore and that brings you so much happiness. It's a harsh thought, but if it were taken away from you, anything worldly, anything tangible, anything that you've earned, if it were taken away from you, would you still be happy? The answer is likely no. And I know that that is a very intense concept to think about everything taken away from you, because I think, for example, if your job was taken away from you, your sense of identity would probably also be taken away from you. And therefore, your happiness would probably be stripped of you as well. And that's why I want to encourage away from just a life of happiness, because if everything were abandoned from you, you would not be happy. Nobody in that position would be happy. But the one thing that could exist, even if it's hanging on by a thread, is joy, because you could still have joy in the midst of all circumstances going absolutely wrong. The belief and the hope and the anchor that something for the betterment of your good is still to come. And so something that I want to share, and just something that Marissa and I just feel so anchored in this conversation, is the verse Philippians 4:12-13. And it reads, "I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through God who gives me strength." I love this verse so much. And for some of us, that may be a verse that we've heard before, but I want to break it down for all of us, just the power behind these words and why I just want us to marinate in them. I think we all know what it's like to be in plenty. We all know what it's like to be on our mountaintop in our life when everything feels like it's going our way, when everything is so good. Maybe you just received such a big blessing in your life and you just feel like you are on top of the world. You have your life together. All things are going good. But in the same vein, we all know what it's like to be in want. We all know what it's like to wish for more in our lives. We all know what it's like to wish we were better, to wish we were different, to wish this, or that. We all know what it's like to struggle in different capacities. We all know what it's like to have a thorn in our flesh of something in this life is just not going our way. We all know what it's like to be hurting or to be insecure. We know both experiences, no matter how old you are in age. We've all experienced both. And whether you're in a good spot or a tough spot, whether you are on that mountaintop or you're in that valley, the beauty of those moments is that there is a strength and there is a hope and there is a joy that is so available to you. And for me, what I know and I cling to and I have hope in that there will be a restoration when I am in that low place is the trust and the faith that God loves me enough that He will carry me through this, that I'm not enduring this just to be forsaken. And even going back to my story time, like I'm not enduring this moment of not having a home just to be forsaken. I'm not enduring this season just to be financially stressed. I'm not just enduring this just because nothing is going my way. I'm enduring this because there is a hope that restoration will come. And so I really cling so tight to these words of the key to contentment is whether I'm in plenty or I'm in want, is to find strength in God. And that really just fuels me so much and provides me so much security when nothing by my own wisdom can provide me security, when nothing by my own strength can provide me security, when nothing tangibly or logically can provide me security, to know and to rest that I can have joy even in the moments when things are so imperfect and so stressful. That provides me so much peace and just anchor in those moments of in between. But like I said, it is an active choice. That does not come natural. I think that is the result of, like I've shared, retraining your mind to think that way. And it doesn't come easy and it won't come easy. It will have to require something of you. It will require you to be active. It will require you to notice the thoughts that are trespassing your mind and shifting them and changing the narratives. And so, yeah, that is such a huge thing I'm so passionate about, as I feel like I'm sure you guys can tell, just because I know the pain of when your mind is not a safe place for you, for yourself. And I know the pain of my own valleys in my life and the own lows in my life. And I've gone through a lot of lows, as I'm sure some of you guys listening have endured yourself. And like truly the only thing that has kept me going and kept me revived in those moments is the presence of joy.
I feel like I didn't even come to, like when you were speaking, I was like, it just kind of all hit me where I don't think I fully understood that concept until about a year ago. And that is kind of when just for sake of time, I won't go into like extensive detail, but just kind of everything that I had really like hoped and worked for and just all of these things, I felt like, not to be dramatic, I'm sure we've all felt this way. I think it's so normal in your 20s. You're like, my life is crumbling. Like every area, you're like, there's so much strain, like relationships are strained, finances, career, all of these things are just kind of going in a direction that you did not plan for or hope for. And I think it was amidst all of that where I was like, okay, my life is not looking like how I want it to look. And yet that is where like God met me in that moment, and He gave me an abundance of joy that I never experienced. And I think why that was so impactful is because it previously, like I would then get something, like maybe God would bless me or like this thing would happen. Somebody would like do something, you get your dream job and you're like, okay, now I'm happy. But I feel like the first time in my life, I was like, oh, wait, I'm joyful amidst all of this. Like, if somebody were to look at my life, they would think I would be the unhappiest I've ever been. But I actually experienced so much joy. And it is just so incredible when you feel that because you realize, wait, why have I been kind of holding out? Like, I have access to this regardless of my circumstances. I don't have to wait anymore. And it just provided such a sense of freedom and hope. And I think, like, to the people in my life that I've met that are so full of joy, and they've had the hardest lives. Like, I feel like we mentioned this quite a bit in our gratitude episode, but it's because they can't hold on to their circumstances because so amidst trials that they have no choice but to choose joy and to choose hope, because that is what allows them to carry on. And so, yeah, it's weighty and it can seem intimidating and maybe even impossible in moments, but there is joy and there is hope that is accessible, and you might not always be able to instantly feel it, but if you seek it out, we both do believe it can be found. Something just kind of practical, because I was just trying to even think of, like, what would I have said to myself previously when I was in that circumstance? And I think the main thing is just don't wait for your circumstances to get better to feel joy. Choose it now. And a prayer that I've been trying to pray just to make sure that I maintain that posture, like even in the good seasons, I want to make sure that my heart remains in that place. And it's just asking God. I mentioned where we are currently, like, God, why are we here? What are you up to? Help me to find joy in these circumstances. Help me to see what you're up to. Help me to choose these things. Help me to see how I can actually have an impact beyond my own life. Like, what's the greater purpose and perspective? Help me to just find joy in the everyday, because yeah, happiness is fleeting and you might find it for the first week or two after something good happens, but joy is something you can wake up and you can choose and feel joy in that day just because it's a new day, and that can be enough for you. You don't have to wait for something else.
That's so good. Something that actually just came to mind is, like, when you, like, are so eager to, like, buy something, whether it's like a new outfit or I don't know, anything that you're so excited about, you like get so excited because you're like, okay, I'm gonna go buy it. And then you get it and you love it, but you only love it for like a second. Or not a second, like you experience it, you appreciate it, like a new pair of shoes. I'm just thinking about clothes. Or like a coffee in the morning, like it is your morning happy, or it is like the outfit you put on and you feel so good in, and you just feel like you feel pretty filled up, but then that moment kind of like disappears and you want something else in its place. And I love because you use the phrase that happiness is fleeting, and that is what anything that we can attain or achieve or receive, it gives us this fleeting feeling of happiness that is ultimately going to go away, and we are going to crave and desire more in its place. But joy is something that doesn't need to be continually replaced. It's an experience. It's that choice. It's that perspective of just trusting the in-betweens. And I love something that you said as well. Ultimately, like, joy is the belief that in those in-between moments and in those seasons when you don't know what's coming next, that you are still choosing to believe that there is good to be found, that the good is not just to come, but it is in the present moment, that there's a reason why you're stuck. There's a reason why you're frustrated. There's a reason why things aren't yet going your way. And when you can have that deep belief in the midst of waiting for the promise and waiting for the hope and the dream and the desire, that is where that joy is experienced. And so to kind of close out this conversation of joy versus happiness, I just want to re-emphasize that happiness is such a fleeting emotion, but joy is steadfast. Joy is something that you can experience today, a emotion, a feeling, a presence that surpasses all understanding, all circumstances, and all results of your life. Happiness is an experience that everyone has, but joy is a product of a refined character. So I want to just close out this episode by ultimately encouraging you guys start changing your words, even towards yourself, of being in the pursuit of happiness. Let us be people that are in the pursuit of joy. Some tangible ways that I just want to encourage you guys to start choosing joy today is exercising gratitude. I know that that's something that we hear so often, but not just exercising gratitude for the things that are going good in your life, but exercising gratitude over the things that are maybe not going good in your life. Be grateful for the ways you're frustrated. Be grateful for the pains in your life. And like I said, that's not to band-aid or diminish or devalue the hardship, whether small or very large, that you're experiencing in your life. But when you can truly take in whatever you're going through and express gratefulness over it, that is where joy is produced. That is where your character is refined. And another thing is focusing on your perspective rather than your circumstances. Like we've shared so many times in this episode, joy is your perspective, and it is so separate, and it is not at all dependent on your circumstances or on any outcomes. And then finally, just want to close out by saying joy is in the things that cannot be taken away from you. Happiness is in the things that can be taken away from you. So finding joy in the things of your day-to-day life, or finding joy in the way that you're thinking or the way that you are choosing to see the world, that is something that no matter what good or bad comes your way, nobody can take away the way that you think. And so choose joy. Those are my final words on joy. I don't know, Marissa, if you have any final words on this conversation.
No, that honestly was everything. I feel like if it still is seeming like a little abstract where you're like, okay, but how can I just like insert joy? I would say something that has practically helped me is just kind of trying to step into my purpose a little bit more. And so for me, like I know Brie talks about, she is like such an encourager of others, and I feel that same desire to just kind of like help and serve other people. And so I think that's a way, like when you're giving to other people, it forces you to not look at your circumstances. So if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, my life is just too hard to even find joy in being there for somebody else. Like find joy in like bringing that goodness and serving other people well. And I think that will actually fill you up and start to even just change your perspective on your own life. And that's something that's kind of helped me start to insert joy, because it absolutely does not come naturally to me. And I really think it does get easier with time. But yeah, it's a muscle that you have to exercise.
That's so good. I love that.
It's time for Love Notes, our final little segment. Today, I thought it would be fitting to do simple joys. These are kind of silly because I know we just mentioned that like joy is much deeper than just little circumstantial things, but I still think it's fun to just find joy in the silly little day-to-day things. So I just made some categories. The first one is a food that is bringing us joy either lately, or let's say we just want to have a little more joy in our life. Like, what do you reach for in the fridge or pantry?
Honestly, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Honey Mama's chocolate bars. Have you ever tried it? Marissa! Okay, it is like the best chocolate. I literally have some every single night since I've discovered it. It's so good. I'll have to bring you some.
Ooh, can you get it just anywhere?
I don't know if you can get it anywhere. I know Whole Foods has it. Erewhon here in LA, of course, has it. But there's this one flavor, which some people are not a fan of. I think it's amazing, but it's a honey lavender flavor.
Ooh,
and it's
I love lavender.
Good. It's so good. And the presentation's like beautiful. I sound like a spokesman for it.
Insert sponsorship.
It's so beautiful. Like there's little like flower flakes on it. It's so pretty. There's also
magical.
There's also a rose flavor, and it has little like rose petals on it. It's literally the best chocolate ever. What about you? What food would you have?
That sounded so yummy. It's funny because ours is kind of similar. There are these dairy-free little like chocolate ice creams from Trader Joe's. And every night I have one just because same thing, like I just want to end my night with some joy. And so I just go in, and I love dark chocolate, and it's so good.
Same. Oh, I love my daily dessert.
We both chose little desserts. I love it.
No.
The next one is a color that brings us joy.
I'm trying to think. I feel like I genuinely just love like sky blue. I feel like I don't have as much like sky blue stuff in my closet per se. Like when the sky, especially here in LA, because we've been experiencing so much gloom, when I see that beautiful like baby blue sky, I am like looking at it right now, it just makes me so happy. And I do actually see that my eye is like drawn to like baby blue things, whether it's like when I'm on my neighborhood walk and I see like blue chalk on the sidewalk, or I don't know, even a blue pair of sneakers or like white sneakers with like blue detailing. I just love blue.
I love blue. That's my favorite color. But one color that I think I've overlooked until recently, I feel like I've been sleeping on this color, is yellow. And I'm trying to like incorporate more yellow. I like don't own anything that's yellow really, but I just love it. It is like the sunshine color. Like it just makes me so happy when I see it. So I'm like, I need more yellow in my life.
I love that.
The next one is a place that brings us joy.
I think for me, maybe it's an obvious one, but maybe it's not. Honestly, just being by the ocean, that brings me so joy as a Texan that lives in California. I have so many moments where I can't believe that I grew up without everyday access to the ocean. So I think that's definitely just my happy place. That's my joyful place. And it just brings me so much comfort just being by the power of the ocean. Like standing there and just listening. I feel like no matter what day I'm having, whether it's the best day or the hardest day, it just calms me so much. So that's mine.
I feel like a lot of people that live here take the ocean for granted. Like they forget to go. I feel like you're good about like taking a walk to the beach and enjoying it.
I go every day.
Which is so good.
I know.
I was going to say basically the same. I was thinking Malibu just because it's pretty accessible to us. And I just love it there. And I love the ocean, but I also just love the fields and just the scenery of Malibu, like driving through the canyons.
Oh my gosh. That was my drive today. It's beautiful.
So beautiful. I think it's like truly one of my favorite places on earth. Like I just am in awe every single time. It does not get old. So
No.
Love Malibu. Okay, next is an activity that brings us joy. It can be just a little something.
You know, I feel like this is actually a good question because it makes me realize that I've been wanting to start a new activity. I can't say it's my favorite yet, but I've been telling Marissa this for a while. I want to start surfing so bad. I think maybe my activity for right now is watching people surf. I think it captivates me so much. Like it's just so impressive to me. But I think that's an activity I want to start. I'm not necessarily doing it in this immediate moment. But that might be my answer. I don't know.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that. Mine's kind of silly, but it's been buying flowers. Like if I just want to brighten my day, I'll go to Trader Joe's and I'll just pick up. I try to get like different flowers each time too. And it's so much fun. It makes me so happy. It's so silly, but I'm like, if there's something tiny like that that just brings you joy, it's so worth the $10 or how much it is. I'm like, it makes me so happy every time I look at them. So
I love that. I used to be more intentional with myself in doing that, and I haven't done that honestly in so long. So that's a good reminder for me.
Reminder for all of you to go and buy yourself flowers because you deserve it.
Yes.
Final one is a quote or verse. It can be a phrase that brings you joy.
I love this. I was actually on Pinterest recently and I love Pinterest. I'm always like pinning a million things, and especially in anticipation for this episode today, I saw this graphic that said the joy of being, and I feel like that's something that I really just take on in my everyday life, of like the joy of just being a human being, of everything that we're going through in our life and everything that we discussed on this episode today. I think that just really resonated with me and stood out to me. So I would say that's probably mine.
I love that. That's a good like Instagram bio.
Yeah, I know. It's so cute.
Mine was a verse, and it's Psalm 16:11, and it says, "You will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy." And it just was really suiting for this joy episode. That verse I kept thinking of. And it just reminds me that I don't have to strive for joy. I can just abide in the presence of a God who loves me. And that is, I don't know, the word abide too has also been like coming to mind a lot recently. And I just think abiding in joy is just a really beautiful like concept to think you can just sit there. If that choice feels hard, just like receive joy.
Wow, that was so good. Way to close off the ending. Like,
that is it. We love you guys so much, and we're so excited for our next episode.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. We pray this episode was encouraging and life-giving. If you found it valuable, please share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe.
And be sure to follow us along over on Instagram at With Love Always Podcast. Signing off with all of our love always, Bree
and Marissa.